And good afternoon. My name is Ryan Belmore. I'm the owner and publisher of What's Up Noop. It is Wednesday, July 26th. Just, let's see, 2:24 is the time I'm recording. Mr. Frank Krosnich joins me. Frank, how are you?
I'm doing fine, Ryan. How are you?
Good. And we
I
are...
haven't changed my allegiance, by the way. This is, I collect hats.
Okay.
I'm still an Orioles fan. I will always be an Orioles fan.
Okay. So that is supposed to be a Brooklyn what hat?
I don't know. I have so many hats. It's got to be at least a couple of hundred hats.
Well, let me tell people what we're doing here is we are chatting with Congressional District 1 candidates. And we have been doing this since the 20th. On the 19th, the ballot was pulled out. We'll get back to your hats later on, but I think we have our special guest ready, just about ready to join us.
Oh, that's great.
So we invited all the candidates who qualified to be on the ballot to join us for a conversation. We've been doing this for a couple election cycles now, maybe 3 or 4.
Yeah, at least.
Yeah. And
I remember one year we did something like 6,000 candidates.
Oh my, we did.
Or it seemed that way.
Yeah, 85 candidates. But right now we are focused on the dozen or so that are running for Congressional District 1. If you are a Newport,
dozen or so Democrats, we've not yet heard from either of the Republicans.
That's correct. If you are in Newport, Aquidneck Island, Newport County, Congressional District 1 is yours. That's the quick way to summarize it. But I want to dive into it now and say hello to Mr. Gabe Amo. And Gabe, how are you?
I'm well. How are you doing?
Good. Why don't you give us the traffic report? Where is tied up today?
Everywhere. So I have been bouncing around the first congressional district as you need to do to get the word out, and so I feel like I've been everywhere today, and it's a good thing because of infrastructure dollars and our state investing in our roads and bridges, but it means we're going to have to deal with the reality. I know we're seeing it down in Newport. Certainly when we're crossing the Newport Bridge these days, we're seeing it along 138, but that's the reality.
That's all right. There is construction everywhere. And you're used to construction. Being in D.C., and you're used to construction, you're used to traffic, and you've spent some time in D.C., and maybe that is a good segue where we could start with introduce us to Gabe for those who haven't got a chance to meet you, to know you. Give us your background and tie into there at the end, maybe, or wherever seems fit of why you're running for.
Yeah, I'll do that, and I'm going to try to do it briefly because I know you want to get through a lot of questions. But in short, I grew up in Pawtucket. I'm the son of 2 West African immigrants. My mom from Liberia, my dad from Ghana, and of all the places they could meet, they met in Providence, Rhode Island. And so I had the opportunity to grow up here and go to high school in Providence. From there, went to college at Wheaton College in Norton, Massachusetts, and then afterward did a Marshall Scholarship at the University of Oxford in the UK. But I started in politics early. The first campaigns I worked on were like the 2002 cycle, licking envelopes for candidates like Attorney General Patrick Lynch, to then moving on to the first job that I had full-time in politics was as a field organizer for Sheldon Whitehouse in 2006 when he ran for the Senate, as you may remember, replacing Lincoln Chafee. From there, after I wrapped up at grad school, I came back home and worked for President Obama on his reelection campaign in Chicago, and then went to the White House right after as a special assistant in the Office of Intergovernmental Affairs. So the team that handles relationships with state and local officials across the country, participating in a two-way dialogue. After that, came back home. I met then Governor-elect Gina Raimondo, who said that I should come back home and help people that I care about. And that was such a powerful opportunity to serve as the Director of Public Engagement and Community Affairs in the Office of the Governor. And wrapped up that time, ended up back in politics, working in the current president's election campaign, managing all the non-battleground states, right? We talk about the battleground states all the time. I did my work managing the teams in non-battleground states like Rhode Island. And from there, just wrapped up 3 months ago a stint at the White House, back again, so 2 times, 2 different presidents, working as the special assistant to the president and deputy director of the White House Office of Intergovernmental Affairs. Say that 3 times fast. And in that role, I was the president's primary liaison to local governments across the country, including Newport's own Mayor's Eye. And on February 21st, when David Cicilline announced that he would be leaving, I was sad because he is such a vigorous advocate for everything Rhode Island. But I came to the realization that I think Rhode Islanders deserve experienced leadership that can be effective from day one and can be part of those big fights that we have going on, whether it's gun violence prevention, certainly our focus on defending the Inflation Reduction Act and making sure that climate change is at the forefront, reproductive freedom, and investing in our people, whether that's making sure our seniors can thrive, and make sure that we protect Social Security and Medicare, but also invest in the care economy, to making sure there are opportunities at every set of the ladder, and so that we can be part of the clean energy supply chain of the future, invest in housing, and so many things. So I want to be part of those fights, and I'm ready to get that job done from day one. But that's hopefully a way of answering both the background question and the why I'm running.
Let me ask you your top 5 priorities.
It's a lot of priorities to list off, but I will list some of them, and hopefully I can go in deeper along the way. Certainly, gun violence prevention is really important to me, and I say this from the frustration that I had having seen too many guns, too many incidents around the country. I was the person at the White House who picked up the phone and called a mayor on behalf of the president to express our condolences, but also to help a community heal. And I think there are some real concrete ways we can help communities heal through some common sense gun reform. Second thing I would say is investing in Social Security and Medicare, and making sure that we preserve them. They're just this week, congressional Democrats put forward a plan to strengthen the Social Security program today. But I also think it goes alongside that, and I would call this sort of 2A/3, is investing in our care economy, right? That is our elder care for our seniors, making sure that we're paying the workers in that space a fair wage, making sure that we have more options for our seniors to live, right? That is a fundamental thing. We've seen seniors homelessness go up in this country tremendously over the last few years. But then there's the other side of the care economy, childcare. That burden often forms disproportionately on women. And we need to make sure that we have a robust childcare infrastructure, quality care, care that meets the needs of our people, and that isn't costing us so much, right? And there's a lot involved in making that care economy robust. The next thing I would say is reproductive freedom, right? That's not my job, if I were elected to Congress, to be in the room for those most difficult of decisions. Bodily autonomy is important. I am pro-choice, unequivocally so. And I think it's so important that we not only preserve our rights in a place like Rhode Island, but provide support for communities as states across the country. And the last thing I would say is on climate change. There are so many important things to do here, whether it's on the mitigation side, making sure that we control our emissions, and there's so many great opportunities to do that through the Inflation Reduction Act, everything from investing in solar, providing funding for local governments to do their own sets of retrofits and investments. And then on the consumer side there, right, tax credits for purchasing cars, tax credits for installing a heat pump, tax credits for doing the things that are going to lower our emissions. But then on the other side, the resilient side, that's so important to Rhode Island, so important to Newport, I spent some time on the Point a few weeks ago, and thinking about the consequences if we don't act and become more resilient and invest in our coastline writ large. That those are really important things, and you need a congressperson who can focus on them. So I hit 5, but there's so much more to do.
And I'll ask him.
I'm excited.
I'll ask about some of them.
Yes.
Court reform, Supreme Court. What do we need to do?
So look, it is a stain on our democracy if we don't have faith in our courts. You know our big time Newporter, Senator Sheldon Whitehouse, and his leadership from the Senate Judiciary Committee on putting forward ethics reform. You might have seen the hearing last week on that topic. So important. If you can't trust in the ethics of the system, the fact that we have justices who can profit from their relationships for fancy trips, for funds coming into their world to do things that a normal person couldn't do. Like, I had an ethics pledge that I had to sign when I was at the White House. Right? Why should we have different standards across the government around conflicts of interest? So that's one. The second thing is I'm very open to the idea of term limits. I like term limits as a matter of practice across our government. I think it's important that we're not beholden to the whims of pretty important people when you get elected to, or when you get appointed to the court and confirmed. But the decision on whether to stay on the court or not, it shifts from president to president. We got to move the politics out of this thing for it to be unequivocally strong in the rulings that come forth, and have people have faith in the system. Trust is a big part of our system as a whole, and if we can't trust in things, that's when things collapse.
So I hear Republicans saying they want to impeach this director, that director, the president. I don't hear Democrats talking about looking at impeachment of any of the Supreme Court justices, particularly Thomas, who clearly has a huge litany of ethical violations. It would seem to be that would be a natural step.
I think we got to do the investigation. What I don't want to do is start out the conversation with the outcome in mind already. Right? That's where we get into trouble in our politics a lot. I don't want to start here by saying that is the most prudent thing. Let us go to Congress and do the necessary investigations, do the necessary analysis, because that will make us more rigorous in our deployment of impeachment as a solution. Right? It doesn't ultimately solve the root of the problem. All it does is it addresses a symptom that we are experiencing now. So I completely, put things on the table. Let's do the analysis, but it's really important that our lawmakers are thoughtful. You see that we in the Congress, the House, impeached President Trump twice, and so the value of impeachment goes down if you put it forward. Now, I think there were very good reasons in both instances, but the point that I'm making is I don't want to just throw impeachment out as a solution. All right, because ultimately we have some structural challenges to face that go beyond a single justice.
So I want to throw out one more thing, and then I'll shut up for a while. Campaign finance reform.
Mm-hmm. I'm all for it. Look, I tell you this, I spend far too much of my time calling people to ask for their financial support. Now, I think there is some value in that, in the sense that that we are able to build our message when people invest in ideas, having resources there, but it should come, in a different way, not consolidated to a small set of people. Moreover, the power of dark money in our politics, it is too pervasive and shapes far more than we need. And so I am a big proponent of campaign finance reform. I think our system, again, it goes back to what I said before, should have some trust built into it. How can you have trust when people are influenced by all of these moneyed interests? Whether it's running TV ads, whether it's funneling money in ways that we don't see, and we don't know where the money is coming from. right? It is, as people often say, if you want to solve the problem, follow the money, right? But in the current state of things, with all this dark money here, you can't. So that's a challenge, and that I would love to address.
Gabe, we started with 35 candidates for this seat, two dozen Democrats. A lot of the times when you listen to the priorities or what's really grinding their gears, to use a saying, a lot of the times it's the same issues. And a lot of the same issues might be, I would imagine, are priorities of a lot of Democrats in the state. Wondering, when you look at the slate of 12 Democrats, almost all, correct me if I'm wrong when I'm done here, almost all standing for the same thing, have the same priorities. What sets you apart, and what do you want people to consider when they're trying to decide between a dozen candidates? Why are you the candidate?
I think that's a great query, and I think that is a central query here, especially where people agree on most of the issues at hand. The first is my experience. No one else has worked for one president, let alone two presidents of the United States, solving problems for the American people. And so that is where my work is based. One of the things people sometimes say to me is, you haven't been elected before, or you haven't been a legislator. Well, I think Congress should have more people who have been focused on solutions, on solving people's problems. I think Congress should have people who have acted when elected officials have spoken. That has been my career. My career has been to get things done. And that is an experience that I'm very grateful for, having worked for President Biden, President Obama, and Governor Raimondo. The other thing I would say is that the depth of that experience has been about, problem solving. I know a question that I often get is, how can you work with Republicans? Do you have experience working with Republicans? I've spoken to more and worked with more Republican elected officials than anybody else in this field, by virtue of the work that I've done at the White House to get the bipartisan infrastructure law across. I spent a lot of time talking to Republican mayors, talking to Democratic mayors, asking them to get involved and speak with their elected officials, whether they were red or blue. And that's really important, right? That bridge building, no pun intended, on infrastructure is an example of concrete experience bringing people together. And so I think that when you look at the field and you look at what differentiates, it is not just the experience that I have, which is not matched, but the depth of it in building relationships and getting things done, especially as it's related to some of the most historic legislation that we've experienced as a country over the last 2 years.
It's interesting that there's not a candidate that we've talked to who says that they don't have the ability to be able to work across the aisle and to reach be able to do things bipartisan. It'd be amazing if everybody got elected. We wouldn't have any divisions anymore.
Well, look, what I would say is this, and let's go to the specifics of that experience. That specific experience that I have is about building bridges at the federal level, right? This is a job interview for people in Newport, across the Quinnipiac Island. This is a job interview. So you should look at what is the job that is coming ahead and what is the experience that people have and how does it match up. And I would argue that I think that my experience, one, is sets me aside from the field, but two, matches the moment that we're in. And we are losing a lot of seniority in Washington. We lost 22 years in Congressman Langevin, lost a dozen years in Congressman Cicilline. I have an ability to hit the ground running because it's not just all of the big national issues that you see, those big fights. I want to be part of those, but it's about who is able to pick up that phone and call the right assistant secretary to advocate for the needs of our community here. I was talking to somebody about the Newport Performing Arts Center just recently, and talking about, wow, this would be on my list, a list of things that I would seek to get, whether it's congressional earmarks or whether it's to leverage my role as a convener to bring people together to help solve. So I want to go deep and figure out how I can help across the spectrum. And that's what I think the difference is with me and a lot of my competition, who are all fine people. I actually think this is a great field with great personalities, lots of enthusiasm. I just think I'm best suited for the job today.
Speaking of enthusiasm, 2 weeks ago, I got a chance to. I just want to the point of we're losing out a lot of seniority in Congress and especially in Rhode Island. But I got the opportunity to be in the room when Congressman Maxwell Frost from Florida, the first Gen Z to be elected to Congress, 26 years old, and they hear the passion and why he's doing what he's doing. I just want to point to the fact we are losing a lot of experience, but we have some amazing young people getting involved in federal politics as well as local politics. And when I bring it back to local politics, I've brought up with some other candidates about endorsements, and I want to make sure for those who might listen to this, Gabe's website is gabeamo.com, GABEAMO.com. And you can go there, see his endorsements, see how you can get involved, see how you can make a monetary donation, his priorities and all of that. But specifically for this broadcast, Newport Mayor Cy, who is one of those young, passionate leaders in Rhode Island, came out right away and endorsed you as a candidate. Your thoughts on that? I know you have a long history with Mayor Cy. What did that mean, and how do you take it that the mayor of Newport came out to endorse you?
Well, it is one of the bigger honors that I've had along this cycle, because I have worked with Mayor Cy for decades. And I think it's important that people know that I have been involved in politics and government in some way in Rhode Island for 20 plus years. And that is a testament to this community that let me in through the door as a young man to help out at every single opportunity, but a community that also nurtured a great leader who decided at the right moment when he wanted to serve the community of Newport, decided to get in, right? This is a contact sport. If you want to make people's lives better, you got to get in, and you don't get a helmet in this thing because you got to use your brain. And so it's so important to me to have somebody who did the hard work of knocking on doors across Newport. I knocked on doors with him. I did. Did the hard work of having house parties across the city, and is diving in deep to some of the biggest problems and opportunities and challenges in Newport, whether it's on education, whether it's climate change, whether it's broadband. He worked so hard to reach out to the Department of Commerce, Secretary of Commerce, and said, how can you help Newport as it relates to broadband, housing? He's talked so much about housing. I've heard the series that Cheryl Hatch has done on the Public's radio about housing in Newport in particular. So I think in this world of government and politics, you're measured as much by what you do with who you surround yourself with. And I think it is a testament both to our campaign, but also Mayor Cy's leadership that I was able to secure his endorsement.
So I heard from someone who is considered a potential candidate, somebody pretty high profile, who probably would have done well in the campaign, who suggested that they didn't run, and others that he knew, he or she knew, who were also pretty capable candidates, passed on this campaign because they view Congress as a place where you just can't accomplish a whole lot these days. Mm-hmm. And you can do better doing something else rather than in being more productive for the community, rather than being in Congress. How do you respond to something like that?
I'm an optimist. That's why I'm running. I truly believe that tomorrow can be better than today in every sense of the world and every venue that's available. And I believe that's possible in Congress. This is why I think it's important to send people who are very solutions oriented, like I've been throughout my career, who have been focused on getting things done, right? Nothing happens overnight in Congress by nature, right? It is at times an archaic institution governed by committees on committees on committees and rules on rules on rules. But what I do ultimately believe is that there is a historic moment in this country to take advantage of both the resources that we have, but I think a shared recognition that we got to come together. And so I've got to have the perspective that we can get things done in Congress. We are making a big choice here in this election. someone who may be in Congress for several terms. And so I think you start with a positive mindset about this, but then you dig in to the stakes, and the stakes are really high here if we don't act, if we don't make our government more functional for people. That's why I talk about my experiences with bipartisanship, not because I don't believe in very specific core principles, but because I believe in what's possible. And we have to put people there who believe in the possibility of politics in order to transform that notion of Congress not being able to get things done, because it has. Look at the last 2 years. Look at the last 2 years. When I worked for President Biden, we had the most historic climate legislation in history. We had the largest infrastructure bill since the Eisenhower administration. We brought people back from the COVID-19 pandemic and invested in communities like Newport with the $350 billion state and local fiscal relief fund. We're investing in chips and science with Secretary Raimondo's leadership. So we are doing big things. And so you got to have faith. And I keep that faith every day.
So I'm going to assume you're supporting President Biden?
I am. That is a no-brainer to me after the record that he has put forward, restored our place in the world. On top of that, people forget where we were in November 2020. Democracy was on the brink. And I truly believe that with all the momentum we have at our backs, President Biden is the right choice to move forward.
Gabe, I don't want to make this a headline, so that's why I put it so late, but I do want to get your reaction. Last Friday, you held a press conference regarding some signatures ballots out of another campaign. The campaign responded later in the day. Satisfied with the response?
As I said then, it is incumbent on the lieutenant governor, one, to take accountability, two, to assess and take an inventory of what happened. And three, do everything that's possible to reassure people in the first congressional districts who have doubts that we can move forward. I don't want to be talking about this. This is not solving the challenges of people who are struggling to pay their rent this month. This is not helping the seniors who are unable to pay for their prescription drugs, nor is it getting us prepared to deal with the ongoing challenges of climate change. So I frankly would like to talk about the issues, and I think it's incumbent on the folks who are involved in this to get to the bottom of it. That includes law enforcement, but it also includes the campaign. But that's not my focus at all, and I'm looking forward to moving past this.
Yeah, unfortunately, it's just an ongoing. I'm going to throw it out there. I don't think yesterday we had Lieutenant Governor on, and the number of she had told us that she had submitted 1,300. I'm just bringing this up because it's Ted Nisi as well as some other reporters, fine reporters out of Providence, are now reporting on it, but. She submitted roughly 1,300 signatures for the race. That means about 40% or 600 signatures were tossed out. Just, I don't know if you want to react to that, or that's kind of why it's still going on today because of an interview we had with her yesterday. So.
Got it. Yeah, I know signatures get tossed out. I probably had some tossed out. I read a story this morning that said I submitted 2 to Jamestown, and both were accepted, so 100% in Jamestown. But again, I believe that the system is working if it is capturing these things. But again, I know what my campaign did, and that's what I can speak to. We had a set of instructions that everybody who collected received, whether they were on my staff or they were volunteers. We certainly followed those the full extent possible. That's why we created those instructions. And as a matter of precaution, last week we called every board of canvassers in the 19 cities and towns in the first congressional district just to check in and say, is there anything that we should be tracking? Because again, I will ultimately be accountable for the performance of my campaign. It's my name that we put forward. It's what the Attorney General said last week when he was on the radio. He said, we as elected officials, and I'm not one yet, but hopefully I will be, have to be responsible for everything in our organizations, whether we like that or not. And certainly, I have a lot of people who work with me directly, volunteers and otherwise. And I take that as a big responsibility, and sometimes a liability, but that's what it is. And I want to get back to the issues along the way, and I know that there will be forums and settings like this across the campaign, and I look forward to doing that.
As you have campaigned, what's the biggest issue that you hear from people? I didn't hear anything about the economy in your list of priorities. What are people saying are the greatest needs? I would assume there were a lot of people who complained about cost of living and about their ability to just make it every day.
Yeah. So I may not have said the economy as like a headline thing, but the economy is the backdrop of everything, right? And when I talked about seniors in particular and the care economy, right, that is everything from being able to afford prescription drugs, which, thankfully, because of the Biden administration, we're going to be able to have Medicare negotiate the cost of prescription drugs. But that's a couple of years out. And so many people are having to make difficult choices about which combination of prescription drugs they're going to take in a given month. That is not a country that we should be. We can be better than that. When I look at the cost of housing, I mentioned housing briefly. Housing is so important. Whatever we can do, both from a tax policy perspective and from an incentivization perspective, incentivizing our local communities to construct more housing. That is something I hear over and over again. Look, the median apartment cost in Rhode Island has gone up. In the Providence area, it's about $2,000. I think that is a difficult pill for people to swallow. And then looking forward on the economy, we have such great opportunities. I think the leadership of someone like Senator Reed and certainly Senator Whitehouse as well, investing in our blue economy, right? We experienced that down on the island, and we know that we can get so many jobs out of that. I think that combined with what we're able to do on clean energy will provide some jobs that keep more people here, because brain drain is also something I worry about extensively. I had the opportunity to work for 2 presidents in Washington. But Rhode Island is where I've wanted to be, and so when I think about opportunities for people, I think of the people I went to school with who wish they could be here in Rhode Island, but need to be elsewhere for their economic future. So yes, the economy is first and foremost. It's just embedded in every single thing that we're doing.
Gabe, magic happens. It's a very cheap campaign thing where you could put I've been using a fortune cookie note-sized paper in everybody's pocket, every voter's pocket in Congressional District 1. The one thing that you want every voter in Congressional District 1 to know about you, to consider when they go to the ballot here in a couple weeks?
I would say it's Gabe has the experience of working for 2 presidents and working here at the State House to serve from day one and take on the big fights with Rhode Island values, enthusiasm, and optimism to make the 1st Congressional District as great as it can be.
And Gabe, we could go on forever and ever, but hopefully people can visit your website to learn more about you if we didn't get to a certain thing. Today, it's gabeamo.com. But I'm wondering if there was anything that you were hoping that we were going to talk about today that we didn't get to. Is there anything that we missed?
Look, I think we covered it all. And I would say in summary is that, I have a Rhode Island story, a story that a lot of people have, whether it's folks who come here from different countries or like my parents, or people who have been here in some form or fashion for a couple hundred years. It's grit, it's resilience, but it's really working hard to make life better for the people in our lives, whether it's our families or in this particular race for people across the district as a candidate. And so I am so excited at the possibility of representing Rhode Island in Congress, and you will have no doubt that I will work as hard as I can, as I have everywhere else in my life, to help people back home, because that's really important to me, and I think that's what we need at this moment.
Excellent. Frank, I didn't go to you. Are you all set?
I think I'm all set. We talked about a lot. If people remember a third of it, a tenth of it, that'd be great. But great opportunity, Gabe, to get to know who you are, and I wish you luck in the campaign.
Well, Ryan, Frank, thank you so much for this. This is a public service, and I am grateful, and I'm sure that all of your listeners are grateful as well. So thank you.
All right. That is Gabe Amo. We appreciate it. Very best of luck over the next couple of weeks. We encourage everybody, Congressional District 1, get out and vote. Head to the Secretary of State's website, find out your polling place, make sure you're registered to vote, check the deadlines, and get out there and vote. Gabe, good luck.
August 16th, early voting starts. The end of the voting period is September 5th. August 16th, remember that. Take care.
All right. That is Gabe Amo, GabeAmo.com. And we appreciate him joining us today. And Frank, that's going to do it for our interviews today. And we chatted with Aaron Regenberg earlier, Gabe Amo now. Let's see, we had Sabina Matos yesterday. We had Stephanie Butte last week. We have Sandra Cano coming up. We have a wide variety of
candidates. Casey coming up.
Yes.
Yeah, and those who may not have been in touch with us, we've reached out to you. If you want to have the opportunity to come on, you know how to reach us.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Prosnitz.
Thank you.
All right. On behalf of Frank, myself, all of us here at What's Up Noop, we want to thank Gabe for taking the time out of his busy schedule to join us today for this conversation. If you missed any portion of it, want to watch it, want to share it, want to listen to it, all available on whatsupnoop.com in just a few minutes as soon as I hit end here. If you want to compare contrast candidates, also all available on whatsupnoop.com, as well as our interview schedule can all be found there. Thanks for watching.